The only person who had anything good to say was Richard Tolman. Tolman thinks you have integrity.
Richard Tolman was the only scientist who praised Dr. Oppenheimer to Colonel Groves, and yet Dr. Oppenheimer is the same person who was screwing his wife, Ruth Tolman, for many years behind his back. Like, what the fuck? It seems more tragic than an anime betrayal.
What happens to stars when they die?
Do stars die?
Exactly why was Dr. Oppenheimer researching on the demise of the stars in the galaxy? When a star is about to die, it will create a fusion reaction in the core. In the aftermath, when the fuel of that fusion reaction starts to diminish, the gravity starts winning and contracts the core with all the nearby energy waves. This intense level of contraction can sometimes trigger the release of a massive energy, sometimes resulting in the explosion of the outer layers if the gravitational mass of that star is extreme. If the gravitational mass is extreme compared to the star, the core might undergo even further contraction, potentially forming a black hole, but the results are not limited to only a couple of things. Now the question is, what is the connection between stellar energy release and a nuclear energy release? So, there can be two possible similarities between them. They both have a mass, which is gravitational mass for the stars, or nuclear mass for the atoms, which turns into a large volume of energy. That energy gets released in various ways and sometimes causing an explosion in the end. Which means, this assumption of the demise of the stars only gave Oppenheimer an idea of what can be possible in the aftermath of the release of a fission or fusion energy. It did not give him the complete idea of making a nuclear bomb. For your further clarity, you should look at the differences between stellar energy release and atomic energy release. You will find a major difference between them.
J. Robert Oppenheimer, the martyr. I gave him exactly what he wanted.
Admiral Strauss said that he wanted to make Oppenheimer look like a martyr, and Kitty also said previously,
"You need to stop playing the martyr."
Well, trying to murder someone could mean a lot of things, but in the context of Oppenheimer, Admiral Strauss wanted Oppenheimer to be persecuted for his advocacy for the development of a nuclear bomb, but his unusual opposition on developing the hydrogen bomb. And getting persecuted for opposing the invention of an H-bomb would certainly make him a political martyr who died supporting a noble cause where his intention was highly questionable based on his past activities, ideology, and involvement with the Communist Party members, which means Strauss wanted him to be persecuted and make the Americans remain in confusion on whether Dr. Oppenheimer was truly a patriot or a questionable personality. Just like he said,
We're not convicting. We're just denying.
He just wanted to make Oppenheimer look like a questionable person, that's all.
Why don't you have a Nobel Prize? Why aren't you a general? They're making me one for this.
Perhaps I'll have the same luck.
Did Dr. Oppenheimer ever receive a Nobel Prize? Nope. His controversial development of the nuclear weapon and his involvement with the Communist Party members did not play a great role in his favor to achieve the Nobel Peace Prize. By the way, Dr. Fermi, Dr. Lawrence, and Dr. Richard Feynman received the Nobel Prize, but not for the development of nuclear weapons, rather for their other contributions to physics.
The bomb had more power than 20,000 tons of TNT.
Was Dr. Oppenheimer wrong in making the nuclear weapon? Was he a villain? I don't think so. The nuclear weapon was necessary for our survival, because if the USA would choose to abort the Manhattan Project, sooner or later the Russians would definitely develop the nuclear weapon, whether the rest of the world would like it or not.
Secrecy won't stop the Soviets from becoming part of the atomic world. A Russian bomb is a matter of time.
The program needs to continue at full pace after the war.
And an enemy country having a bigger weapon than you will definitely become a threat to your own existence. So, a nuclear bomb was inevitable for the survival of the USA. Oppenheimer did the right thing making the weapon, and the Japanese also had no interest in surrendering themselves, but rather interested in taking control of the Pacific Asian export-import routes by force. So making Japan realize their worth was also necessary, and regular missiles or weapons would never do the job to pacify them.
According to my intelligence, which I cannot share with you, the Japanese people will not surrender. Under any circumstances.
Why was the testaments of Dr. Oppenheimer named as fission, but the testaments of Admiral Lewis named as fusion? Nuclear fission and fusion are two different nuclear reactions that involve the release of vast energy. Fission bombs are made of uranium or plutonium, like the Trinity, Fat Man, or Little Boy. Fusion bombs are made of heavy hydrogen materials, including deuterium or tritium, like the Tsar Bomba, tested by the Russians in 1961. Now, Dr. Oppenheimer was highly invested in building a fission bomb, but when there was a need for the development of a fusion bomb, Oppenheimer decided to step back, suggesting everyone to not waste our resources in developing another kind of bomb. He opposed the proposals of Admiral Strauss, who, on the other hand, was taking high interest in developing a fusion bomb. The differences in their point of views on the fission and fusion bomb made them ideologically repulsive towards each other, and explaining the story in two different chapters using two different titles was foreshadowing the differences in their perspectives.
We compact the atoms together under great pressure to induce a fusion reaction.
Have you ever wondered how does a fusion happen? Hydrogen isotopes are generally used as fuels that create a tremendous energy among the nuclear atoms. An additional heat is also provided by forming a magnetic wall or throwing laser beams on the isotopes and nuclear atoms for the increment and entrapment of the heat. The combination of isotope energy and extra heat causes the nuclear atoms come closer, overcoming the repulsive behavior and fuse into a nucleus. And now, a big nucleus has been fused, which is the combination of a lot of nuclear atoms. That nucleus then releases a vast amount of energy in the end in the form of light, heat, and gamma radiation.
May I ask why?
We all entered this through knowing a fission bomb was possible.
In case you have been wondering how does a fission happen, I would love to give you the explanation for that too. Uranium or plutonium isotopes are generally used as fuels that create a tremendous energy among the nuclear atoms. An additional heat is also provided by firing neutrons into the core, which we generally know as neutron bombardment, for the increment and entrapment of the heat. The combination of isotope energy and additional heat caused by the neutron bombardment causes all the nuclear atoms to split into many smaller nuclei, which we can collectively call nuclei. Those tiny balls of nucleus start crashing onto other nuclear atoms, causing a lot of splits into smaller nuclei. And we call this situation a chain reaction. This chain reaction releases a vast energy in the form of light, heat, and gamma radiation. And I would love to advise you to not confuse the term energy with the term explosion. Energy release happens gradually and naturally. For example, the manifestation of electric energy into light energy through a light bulb can be considered an energy release. Explosion, on the other hand, happens suddenly and forcefully. For example, the sudden popping of a balloon is called an explosion, which was done forcefully. But in both situations, it is still considered a release of energy. And the both ways of energy manifestation can be in the form of light, heat, and gamma radiation. By the way, I would like to clarify one more thing with all of you. Magnetic power creates an invisible wall to entrap the heat in fusion reaction. Laser power, by the way, does not create an invisible laser wall to entrap the heat. Instead, it keeps on using laser beams on the isotopes and nucleus to keep them hot.
How do you generate enough force to fuse hydrogen atoms?
A small fission bomb.
Have you ever wondered why a fission bomb is recommended for developing a fusion bomb? The main purpose of a fission bomb is to serve more internal heat for the completion of the fusion process, which means the fission heat is different from the entrapment process of the magnetic field or laser beam. The fission heat is a form of internal heat for the nuclear explosion. Also, the fission reactor releases energy at first and then the fusion reactor.